I remember the exact moment my world tilted off its axis. I was standing in my childhood kitchen, the one with the chipped blue tiles my mother always meant to replace, holding a binder full of wedding plans and a heart full of hope. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September, and the light coming through the window had that golden quality that makes everything feel softer, kinder. I should have known better. Nothing soft was coming. My name is Eleanor Perry. I'm 32 years old, and until that Tuesday, I thought I understood my family. I thought I knew what love looked like, what loyalty meant, and where I stood in the careful hierarchy of my parents' affection. I was wrong about all of it. Mom, I just need to go over the final numbers with you and Dad, I said, setting the binder on the kitchen table. My hands were shaking slightly, not from nervousness, but from excitement. I'd been planning this wedding for 14 months. Every detail had been chosen with care. The blush roses that would line the aisle, the string quartet that would play as I walked toward Marcus, the menu that balanced my grandmother's traditional recipes with something more contemporary. It was going to be perfect. My mother didn't look up from her phone. She was 58 then, with carefully maintained blonde highlights and the kind of rigid posture that comes from a lifetime of holding things in. Eleanor, we need to talk about that. Something in her voice made my stomach drop. It wasn't the words, it was the flatness of them, like she was reading from a script she'd memorized but didn't believe in. Okay, I said slowly, pulling out a chair. What's up? That's when my father walked in. Richard Perry had always been a quiet man, the kind who let my mother steer the ship while he stood silently at the helm, pretending he had no say in where we were going. He didn't meet my eyes. That should have been my first real warning. Your father and I have discussed this extensively, my mother began, and I felt eyes crawl up my spine. We've decided we can't fund your wedding. The words didn't make sense at first. They bounced around my head like marbles in a jar, refusing to settle into meaning. Can't, I repeated. But we agreed. You said you'd contribute $50,000. We shook hands on it. I have vendors booked, deposits paid, we've reconsidered. My mother's voice was clipped, surgical. Frankly, Eleanor, this whole thing has gotten out of hand. The venue, the flowers, the ridiculous dress you insisted on, it's all too much. We're not funding this show. She said it like my wedding was a Broadway production I was mounting for my own vanity, not the most important day of my life. Mom, my voice cracked. Everything is booked. The wedding is in 6 weeks. I've been planning this with you. You helped me choose the venue. You were there when I picked the dress. And we've realized it's excessive. She finally looked up from her phone, and her eyes were cold. You need to learn that you can't always have everything you want just because you want it. I felt like I'd been slapped. This isn't about what I want. This is about you keeping your word. You promises change, Eleanor. Circumstances change. That's when I heard a sound from the doorway. A snicker quickly stifled. I turned, and there was my sister Vanessa, leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed and a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. Vanessa was 2 years younger than me, with the same blonde hair as our mother, but none of the restraint. She'd always been the wild one, the one who dropped out of college to find herself in Bali, who came home with a new business idea every 6 months and expected everyone to fund her dreams. Something funny, V? I asked, and my voice came out harder than I intended. She shrugged, but the smirk didn't fade. I mean, it is kind of a lot of money for one day. Stay out of this, I snapped. Girls, my father said quietly. It was the first word he'd spoken since entering the room. What circumstances changed? I turned back to my mother, ignoring Vanessa. What happened between 3 weeks ago when we confirmed the final guest count and today? My mother exchanged a look with my father. It was brief, but I saw the silent conversation that passes between people who've been married for 35 years. And I saw something else too. Guilt. Vanessa needs our help, my mother said finally. She's starting a business. A real opportunity this time. An artisanal candle company with a social mission. She needs capital to get it off the ground, and we've decided to invest in her future instead of throwing money away on one party. The room went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I looked at Vanessa, who had the decency to look away. I looked at my father, who studied his shoes like they contained the secrets of the universe. I looked at my mother, who met my gaze with something that looked almost like defiance. An artisanal candle company, I repeated softly. It's a good opportunity, Vanessa said defensively. I have a real business plan this time. Mom and Dad believe in me. I felt something crack inside my chest. It wasn't dramatic, not the sound of a heart breaking in a movie, all strings and violins. It was quieter than that, more permanent, like a bone fracturing under pressure it was never meant to bear. I'd been working as a civil litigation attorney for 8 years. I'd put myself through law school with scholarships and loans, worked 60-hour weeks, built a career my parents claimed to be proud of. I'd been dating Marcus for 5 years, a kind, stable man who taught history at the local high school and coached youth basketball. We'd saved carefully, planned responsibly, and yes, we'd accepted my parents' offer to help with the wedding because they'd insisted. Because they'd said it would be their gift to us. Meanwhile, Vanessa had burned through 3 business opportunities in as many years. A juice bar that closed after 6 months. A yoga studio that never opened. A jewelry line that produced exactly 12 pieces before she got bored. And now candles. How much? I asked quietly. That's not relevant, my mother said. How much are you giving her? 70,000. My father's voice was barely above a whisper. She needs 70,000 to secure production space and initial inventory. 70,000. 20,000 more than they'd promised me. I stood up. My legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. I see, Eleanor. Don't be dramatic, my mother said. You're a successful attorney. You make good money. You can pay for your own wedding. Vanessa needs this chance to prove herself. Her 5th chance, I said. That's not fair, Vanessa protested. I looked at her, really looked at her. At 29, she still had the face of someone who'd never been told no. Not in any way that mattered. Our parents had cushioned every fall, funded every whim, and now they were pulling the rug out from under me to give her another soft landing. You're right, I said. It's not fair. I picked up my wedding binder and tucked it under my arm. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, clear. Eleanor, my father started, but I held up my hand. Understood, I said. Just that one word, understood. I walked out of that kitchen, got in my car, and drove home to the apartment I shared with Marcus. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, watching the sun set behind the building across the street. And I thought about everything I'd believed about my family. When I finally went inside, Marcus took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. I told him everything. He wanted to drive to my parents' house and have it out with them, but I stopped him. There's no point, I said. They made their choice, so what do we do? He asked. We plan a wedding we can afford. Something small, something just for us. We did exactly that. We got married 6 weeks later in a friend's backyard with 20 guests, a playlist instead of a string quartet, and wildflowers instead of designer arrangements. My grandmother came. Marcus's family came. My parents received an invitation but didn't RSVP. They didn't come. Neither did Vanessa. I didn't call them. I didn't beg. I said understood. And I meant it. What I didn't tell anyone, not even Marcus, not at first, was what else I understood. I understood that something was wrong. My parents weren't wealthy, but they were comfortable. My father had been a regional bank manager before retiring. My mother had worked in real estate. They'd been careful with money my entire life, bordering on cheap. The idea of them suddenly having $70,000 to throw at Vanessa's candle dreams didn't add up. 2 weeks after the wedding, I started asking questions. I called the bank where my father had worked for 30 years and asked to speak to an old colleague of his, Tom Chen, who'd been at our house for barbecues throughout my childhood. We met for coffee. Tom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. He stirred his coffee for a long time before answering. About your father? About money? Do my parents have the kind of cash to be making large investments? Tom was quiet. Then, Eleanor, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but your father came to see me about a month ago. He wanted to take out a loan against your grandparents' house. My blood went cold. What house? The house on Maple Street. The one your grandfather left to you and Vanessa in his will. My grandparents had died when I was in law school, first my grandmother, then my grandfather 6 months later. I remembered the reading of the will. The house had been left to Vanessa and me equally. We were supposed to sell it and split the proceeds, but the market had been bad, so we decided to wait. My parents managed the property in the meantime, or so I'd thought. My father tried to take a loan against a house he doesn't own. He said he had power of attorney. I told him he'd need both you and Vanessa to sign off on any loan, or he'd need documentation proving he had the legal right to act on your behalf. Tom looked uncomfortable. He said he'd take care of it. I drove straight to the county recorder's office. I should have gone home first, should have called Marcus, but I couldn't wait. I had a feeling in my gut like swallowing stones. The clerk brought up the records for the Maple Street property. There, filed 3 months earlier, was a power of attorney document giving my father full authority to make financial decisions regarding the property. It was signed by both me and Vanessa. I'd never signed it. I'd never even seen it. I asked for copies of everything, the power of attorney, the deed, every document filed in the last year. The clerk looked sympathetic as she printed them out. In my car, I studied the signature on the power of attorney. It looked like mine, almost. The U was too rounded. The R slanted wrong. Someone had practiced, but not quite enough. I called my firm. Specifically, I called Diane Rodriguez, a senior partner who specialized in fraud and estate litigation. Diane, I need your help, I said. And I need you to keep this confidential for now, always, she said. What's going on? I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Eleanor, if what you're saying is true, if they forged your signature, this is serious. This is criminal. I know. Are you sure you want to pursue this? These are your parents. I thought about the word I'd said in that kitchen. Understood. I'm sure. Over the next 3 weeks, I built a case. Diane helped me quietly, carefully. We pulled bank records, loan documents, every piece of paper connected to that house. What we found was worse than I'd imagined. My parents hadn't just taken out one loan. They'd refinanced the house twice, pulling out nearly $200,000 in equity that belonged to me and Vanessa. The money hadn't all gone to Vanessa's candle business. Some had paid off my parents' credit card debt. Some had funded a cruise to Europe. Some had simply vanished into their checking account, spent on things I'd never know about. The candle business was real, though. Vanessa had used $70,000 to lease a space, buy equipment, and order inventory. She'd even hired 2 employees. I drove by it once, a small storefront with hand-painted letters on the window. Vanglo Candles. Light your life. I sat in my car across the street and watched her through the window, laughing with a customer, completely unaware that the foundation of her dream was built on theft from her own sister. I felt nothing. That was the strangest part. I thought I'd feel angry, betrayed, hurt. But there was just nothing. A clean, clear nothing where love used to live. The evidence was overwhelming. The forged signature, the misappropriated funds, the pattern of deception. Diane helped me file a civil suit against both my parents and Vanessa. She also reported the forgery to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges. I didn't tell them it was coming. I didn't give them a chance to explain or apologize or make it right. The sheriff's deputy served them on a Thursday morning, and by Thursday afternoon, my phone was ringing off the hook. I didn't answer. The first voice message was from my mother. Her voice was shaking. Eleanor, what is this? What are you doing? Call me immediately. The second was from my father. Sweetheart, please. There's been a mistake. We need to talk about this. The third was from Vanessa, and she was screaming. Are you insane? You're suing us? Your own family? Over money? You're going to destroy everything over money? I saved all of them. My attorney said they might be useful. The lawsuit was straightforward. I was suing for the full value of my half of the house equity they'd stolen, 100 plus legal fees, plus damages for fraud and emotional distress. I was also pursuing criminal charges for forgery and theft. The criminal case moved slower, but the civil case gained momentum quickly. Diane was a shark in the courtroom, and my parents' attorney, a family friend who'd known me since I was 6, looked increasingly uncomfortable as the evidence mounted. 3 weeks after the suit was filed, my grandmother called. My father's mother, Judith, was 83 and sharp as ever. Eleanor Rose Perry, she said when I answered. What in God's name is happening in this family? Hi, Grandma. I kept my voice steady. Your mother called me crying. Said you're trying to destroy them. Said you're being vindictive about the wedding money. Is that what she told you? That this is about the wedding? There was a pause. It's not. I told her everything. The forged documents, the stolen equity, the lies. When I finished, she was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Grandma, that house was from my husband's family, she said finally. He wanted you girls to have something of your own. Something secure. Her voice cracked. My son stole from you. Yes. What can I do? Nothing, Grandma. Just, I need you to know I didn't want this. But I can't let them get away with it, no. She said firmly. You can't. You hold the line, Eleanor. You hold it. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for early December. My parents showed up looking like they'd aged 10 years and 2 months. My mother's highlights had grown out, showing gray roots. My father's face was gaunt. Vanessa came too, dressed in an expensive blazer I suspected my parents had bought her. They sat on one side of the courtroom. I sat on the other with Diane. Marcus was beside me, his hand covering mine. The judge reviewed the evidence. The forged power of attorney, the loan documents, the bank statements showing where the money had gone. When she looked up at my parents, her expression was ice. Mr. and Mrs. Perry, these are serious allegations. The evidence presented appears to show a clear pattern of fraud and forgery. Do you have any explanation? My father stood. He looked at me, and for the first time in months, our eyes met. Your Honor, I made a mistake. I thought I was helping Vanessa. I thought Eleanor wouldn't mind because she was doing well. I thought his voice broke. I thought I could fix it before anyone knew. You forged your daughter's signature. Yes. You stole $100,000 from her inheritance. Yes. And you used those funds for personal expenses and to fund your other daughter's business. Yes. The judge looked at him for a long moment. Then at my mother, who was crying silently. Then at me. Miss Perry, you're seeking full restitution plus damages. Is that correct? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. And you've filed criminal complaints as well. Yes, Your Honor. Is there any possibility of settling this matter outside of court? Perhaps through mediation? Diane stood beside me. My client is open to hearing any genuine offer of restitution, but only if it includes full repayment with interest, a formal admission of wrongdoing, and a plan to prevent any future access to assets that rightfully belong to her. The judge nodded. I'm going to order a 30-day mediation period. If the parties can't reach an agreement, we'll proceed to trial. Mr. and Mrs. Perry, I strongly suggest you consult with your attorney about the seriousness of these charges. Forgery alone carries significant criminal penalties. We filed out of the courtroom. In the hallway, my mother tried to approach me. Eleanor, please don't, I said. Speak through the attorneys. You were my baby. I held you when you were born. I taught you to read. You stole from me. You forged my signature. You chose Vanessa's 5th failed business over my wedding. And you didn't just take your money back, you took mine. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You chose. It wasn't like that, Vanessa said, stepping forward. They were trying to help me. I didn't know they forged anything. I thought you'd agreed, did you? I looked at her. Did you really think I'd agree to give up $100,000 so you could make candles? Did you think I'd be fine with them canceling my wedding for this? She looked away. The difference between us, I said quietly, is that I've had to work for everything I have. You've been handed everything, and it's still never enough. I'm done being the responsible one who's expected to just understand while you play entrepreneur with my inheritance. I walked away. Marcus followed. I heard my mother crying behind me, heard my father trying to calm her. I kept walking. The mediation was brutal. We met in a conference room with both sets of attorneys and a professional mediator. My parents came with a proposal. They'd pay back $50,000 over 5 years and sign over their portion of another property they owned, a small rental house worth about $75,000. Oh, that's not full restitution, Diane said immediately. That's $125,000 total, and only if you value the rental property at current market rates. My client is owed $100,000 plus interest, legal fees, and damages. We're looking at closer to $200,000 all in. We don't have that kind of money, my father said. You found $70,000 for Vanessa's candles, I said. Find it. Eleanor, please. My mother's voice was desperate. We'll lose everything. The house, our savings, everything. You were fine with me losing everything for one day. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It's not. None of this is fair, but it's real. We went back and forth for hours. Finally, my parents' attorney proposed a settlement. They'd take out a home equity line of credit on their house to pay me $100,000 immediately, plus $30,000 for legal fees. They'd sign a promissory note for the remaining damages, payable over 3 years. Vanessa would sign over her half of the Maple Street house to me, giving me full ownership. What? Vanessa stood up. That house is mine too. That house was yours, Diane corrected. Your parents stole from both of you, but Eleanor is the one pursuing legal action. If you want to keep your share, you can join the lawsuit against your parents and pursue your own restitution. Vanessa looked at our parents. Mom? Dad? They said nothing. You want me to give up my inheritance? Vanessa's voice rose. After you said you were helping me? After you said this was an investment in my future? We'll make it up to you, my mother said weakly. How? You're paying Eleanor everything you have. The room fell silent. Vanessa looked around at our parents, at the attorneys, at me. Finally, at me. You're really going to do this, she said. You're really going to destroy this family over money. I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm just refusing to be destroyed. She grabbed her purse and walked out. The door slammed behind her. We signed the settlement agreement that day. My parents took out the loan. I received $130,000 within 2 weeks. The Maple Street house became solely mine, and I sold it within a month for $380,000. After paying off the remaining equity loans my parents had taken out, I netted an additional $95,000. Oh, the criminal charges were dropped as part of the settlement, on the condition that my parents entered a court-monitored financial counseling program and completed 200 hours of community service. I didn't see them again until the final court date, when the judge signed off on everything. My mother tried to speak to me one more time in the courthouse parking lot. Eleanor, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, she said. I know that's not enough, but I was wrong. We were wrong. Your father and I, we got caught up in trying to help Vanessa, and we made terrible choices. But we love you. We've always loved you. I turned then, looked at her. She'd aged years and months. You loved the idea of me, I said. The successful daughter who had it all together, who didn't need you. But when I needed you to keep your word, to show up for me just once, you chose her. Again, it wasn't about choosing, it was exactly about choosing. And then, when you didn't even have the money to give her, you stole from me to fund your choice. I shook my head. You know what hurts most? Not the money, not even the wedding. It's that you never even asked me. You just decided my life. My inheritance, my security meant less than her whim. What can I do? She whispered. How can I fix this? You can't. That's what you don't understand. You can't forge my signature and then unforget. You can't steal from me and then unsteal it. You can't betray me and then unbetray me. It's done. So that's it. You're cutting us out of your life forever? No, you cut yourselves out when you chose to commit fraud rather than tell Vanessa no. I paused. The difference is, I'm just accepting it. I got in my car and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw her standing there crying. I felt nothing. Marcus and I used some of the money to buy a house. A real house, with a yard and a fireplace and enough room for the future we were building. We had it inspected thoroughly, hired a lawyer to review every document, made sure every signature was genuine. I trusted nothing anymore. Except him. Vanessa's candle business closed after 7 months. She posted about it on social media, something about the market being oversaturated and not having the right support system. She didn't mention that her support system had spent $70,000 of stolen money to get her started. My grandmother called me when she heard. Your mother wants me to tell you that Vanessa's struggling, that she's depressed, that she needs family. What do you think I should do?" I asked. "I think you should live your life," Grandma said, "and let them live with their choices." That was 2 years ago. I'm 34 now. Marcus and I are expecting our first child in 3 months. A daughter. We're going to name her Judith, after my grandmother. I haven't spoken to my parents since that day in the parking lot. They sent a card when we announced the pregnancy, but I didn't open it. Vanessa tried to reach out once through Facebook, but I didn't respond. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I think I was too hard. If family isn't worth more than money, I tell them it was never about the money. It was about the moment in that kitchen when my mother said, "We're not funding this show," and I realized I'd been a supporting character in their story my whole life. It was about the forged signature that said my consent. My voice, my autonomy didn't matter. It was about being expected to understand while never being understood myself. I said understood that day because I finally did understand. I understood that love without respect is just manipulation. I understood that family without boundaries is just control. I understood that I had spent 30 years making myself smaller so Vanessa could feel bigger, and my parents could feel generous. The wedding they canceled wasn't the show. Their performance of being good parents while stealing from one daughter to enable another, that was the show. And I refused to keep buying tickets. Sometimes late at night, when I'm standing in the nursery we've prepared for our daughter, I think about what I'll tell her someday. About her grandparents she'll never meet, about the aunt whose name she might hear but never know. I'll tell her that she is loved not despite who she is, but because of it. That her voice matters, her boundaries matter, her dreams matter. That no is a complete sentence and understood can be the strongest word you ever speak. I'll tell her that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most will ask you to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. And when that happens, you don't owe them your ashes. You owe yourself the strength to walk away. I'll tell her that I chose her, chose the life Marcus and I are building, chose my own worth, chose my own peace. And that choice, that refusal to be small anymore, was the real beginning of my story. Not the end of theirs, the beginning of mine. And it started with one word, spoken clearly in a kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon when I finally understood. The show was over, and I was done performing.